Chapter 146. Grasped flying sword with bare hands. Lin Fei left Shan City, turning his course towards Kaiyuan Prefecture. The court's army, engaged in quelling the rebellion, had reached Kaiyuan Prefecture. And so, a fierce assault was launched. The course of the battle was unknown. With this in mind, Lin Fei pressed on with all haste. His figure was elusive as a faint afterimage. The closer he got to Kaiyuan Prefecture from Shan City, the less populated it became. Refugees were everywhere, and so were corpses. Even the sides of the official road were littered with bodies. Although it wasn't summer yet, the smell of decay wafted from these bodies. The villages Lin Fei passed were merely remnants of broken walls. Such were the times of war. Whether it was the rebels or the imperial army, their passage was never a good omen for the common folk. The imperial army was somewhat bearable, some semblance of military discipline still remained. But the rebels, they were utterly lawless, worse than bandits. Lin Fei knew this. In wars, the directly killed were not the majority. But the devastation brought by war was dreadful. Famine and disease caused by war were the true horrors. In the cold weather of winter, the chance of corpses breeding plague was minimal. But come summer, if the Paradise Sect's rebellion was not quelled, then the heat and the swarms of untreated corpses would breed plague. And should an epidemic break out, death would claim far more. The more Lin Fei saw, the stronger the killing intent toward the Paradise Sect grew in his heart. At last, finally, Lin Fei beheld Kaiyuan Prefecture. Above it yet hung the flag of the Paradise Sect's rebels. While outside, a multitude of military camps were stationed. That was the court's grand army, tasked with suppressing the rebellion. Many bodies lay scattered on the ground. The air was dense with the reek of blood. It was clear that both sides had likely already fought numerous battles. Yet, the lingering resistance of Kaiyuan Prefecture suggested the court's forces had encountered difficulties. With a flicker, Lin Fei appeared before the army's encampment after a few leaps. "Halt, this is a strategic area, approach is forbidden, violators will be executed without mercy." A soldier roared, brimming with killing intent. Lin Fei glanced at the camp within. He did not feel the need to announce his arrival. With a soft whistle, Lin Fei stepped forth. He covered a distance of 60 meters in an instant. Just like that, he breezed past the guarding soldiers. Startled, the soldiers cried out, "Assassin!" A din arose as countless armored soldiers, wielding hefty sabers and long spears, instantly formed a battle line. Spears stood tall as trees, their sabers gleaming frostily, all pointed at Lin Fei, the assassin who had audaciously trespassed into their camp. Such a formidable array would have been difficult to break through even for an innate martial artist. HMPH. Lin Fei snorted dismissively. None could draw their saber in his presence. And so, Lin Fei's figure came to a slight halt. Then, his saber intent trembled minutely. With a boom, the terrifying saber intent immediately enveloped the soldiers on the front line. Instantly, all the sabers within the formation began to vibrate. "What's happening? I can't draw my saber. Sorcery, this is sorcery. Quickly fetch the camp's immortal masters, only immortal masters can dispel this sorcery." The soldiers were seized by intense fear. As for the formation, it crumbled at the surge of Lin Fei's saber intent. Lin Fei silently shook his head. These soldiers hardly constituted an elite force. If they were truly elite soldiers, even with his saber intent pressing down on them, they would have maintained their formation. And more so, they would have launched a courageous charge. After all, Lin Fei's saber intent could only suppress the sabers. It did not have much of an effect on those wielding long spears. With a soft whistle, Lin Fei took another stride. He passed this row of soldiers, preparing to step into the commander's tent. Whence came this assassin? Trespassing into the military camp is a capital offense. A streak of white light shot out from the commander's tent. A flying sword. This was Lin Fei's second encounter with such a weapon. Moreover, judging by the spiritual power accompanying the sword, it was evident that it was being controlled by a high-level chi condensation cultivator. Caught off guard, even a martial arts grandmaster might be severely disadvantaged. One would even be pierced through the head by the flying sword. With a snap, Lin Fei simply extended a fair hand and seized the white streak of light. As the white glow faded, it revealed a delicate flying sword about a foot long. The flying sword attempted to struggle in Lin Fei's grasp but was brutally suppressed by his saber energy. Holding the flying sword, Lin Fei walked straight into the commander's tent. Whoosh! Inside the tent, countless gazes converged on Lin Fei, especially on his right hand, catching a flying sword barehanded. Even a martial arts grandmaster wouldn't dare to attempt such a feat, but now Lin Fei had actually caught a flying sword barehanded. What could this mean? Regardless of whether they were martial arts masters or high-level chi condensation cultivators within the tent, everyone held their breath. Their hearts were filled with shock. Immortal Slayer Saber, Lin Fei. At this moment, a white-haired Taoist spoke. He obviously recognized Lin Fei. You recognize me? Lin Fei looked at the white-haired Taoist. He didn't know the man. The white-haired Taoist sighed deeply. I saw Immortal Slayer Saber Master Lin from the sidelines during the royal competition. Lin Fei understood. The man was probably a chi condensation cultivator of the royal family who's hiding in the crowd. Lin Fei, of course, hadn't noticed him. Master Lin, what is the purpose of your audacious entry into the military camp? The Taoist asked. Lin Fei did not answer directly. Instead, he held up the flying sword in his hand. His gaze swept across those within the tent. Whose sword is this? At his question, another black-robed Taoist stood up. His face flushed, but he was compelled to speak. Master Lin, it is mine. Seeing that Lin Fei had made no move to return the flying sword, the Taoist continued, I acted rashly. Please forgive me, Master Lin. Seeing the Taoist admit his mistake, Lin Fei said calmly, the material of the flying sword is too poor, it can't compare with Yuan Gang's flying sword. Afterward, Lin Fei casually flicked the flying sword. Whoosh! The flying sword flew back into the Taoist's hands. The Taoist's face grew even more uncomfortable. However, the fact was right in front of him. Lin Fei had caught his flying sword barehanded. What else could he say? As for the comparison with Yuan Ganze, he was naturally far inferior. Yuan Ganze, after all, was a core elder of the Guardian Primordial Mountain. A top-notch chi condensation cultivator. How could he compare with Yuan Ganze? Although the Taoist felt frustrated in his heart, he was also quite shocked. No one knew better than him how formidable his flying sword was. But Lin Fei had actually caught the flying sword with his bare hands. And it seemed to have been done effortlessly. Such power was truly terrifying. Living up to the renown of the Immortal Slayer Saber, Lin Fei's gaze swept over everyone, finally resting on a burly but already aging general. Are you General Li Yuhu? Lin Fei asked. I am indeed Li Yuhu. May I ask why Master Lin is trespassing into the camp? Take a look. The Emperor's Imperial Edict. Lin Fei directly took out the Imperial Edict and tossed it in front of Li Yuhu. Upon careful examination, Li Yuhu finally breathed a sigh of relief. He immediately stood up, respectfully returned the Imperial Edict to Lin Fei, and said, Master Lin, the Emperor has dispatched you to assist the Imperial Court in quelling the rebel army. If necessary, the Emperor has ordered me to follow your command. I will certainly obey. Lin Fei asked indifferently, General Li, the Imperial Court's army has been in Cayenne Prefecture for many days. Why have they been unable to break through Cayenne Prefecture and crush the rebels? Upon hearing Lin Fei's question, General Li Yuhu gave a bitter smile. Master Lin may not be aware, but the military under the rebel banner, though a ragtag bunch, is receiving aid from a significant number of evil demonic beings within their camp. Among them, there is no lack of high-level qi condensation cultivators. Some Taoist masters from the royal family and the court have gone into battle, but they were no match for those demonic beings. Moreover, the entire city wall and gate have been reinforced by formations from those demonic beings. Even if our army attacks for several days in a row, they cannot breach the city gate. At present, we can only besiege Kaiyan Prefecture, hoping to find a way to breach the city. However, our army's food and forage supply is somewhat insufficient. If we cannot breach the city after a prolonged period, I fear we may have to retreat. Li Yuhu was also helpless. Leading soldiers in battle was not a problem for him. Against these ragtag rebels, if it were a field battle, he could crush them in less than an hour. But this was a siege. The rebels were huddled in Kaiyan Prefecture, guarding the city gate and walls with formations by those demonic beings. Ordinary soldiers were completely helpless. Demonic beings? Where do these demonic beings come from that they can withstand the qi condensation cultivator of the court and royal family? It must be the support from some immortal sects or Taoist schools. Lin Fei's eyes turned cold. Then, he looked at Li Yuhu and said sullenly, "General Li, you immediately muster the troops. I'll go and blast open the city gate and walls. When the time comes, I will take care of those demonic beings. The task of crushing the rebel paradise sect is yours. Any problems?" Master Lin wants to go and blast open the city gate alone. Even the Taoist masters casting magical artifacts couldn't do that. Li Yuhu was somewhat surprised. "Speed is of the essence in war. I will go and return quickly." After saying that, Lin Fei turned around and took a step out, leaving the tent. Despite being somewhat surprised, Li Yuhu understood. The Emperor's decree had made it very clear. If necessary, everything would follow Lin Fei's command. Thinking of this, Li Yuhu gritted his teeth and immediately shouted, "All generals, muster the troops immediately and prepare to siege the city." The general of the rear obeys. And so, the imperial court's army to quell the rebellion also started to move, blasting open the city gate. Even for the immortal Slayer Saber, is it possible? People still had some disbelief in their hearts. The strength of a martial artist was indeed powerful. But in terms of destructive power, it was far inferior to the magical artifacts of qi condensation cultivators. Magical artifacts couldn't break open those city gates and walls reinforced by formations, what more a martial artist? The crowd could only hold their doubts in their hearts. They also quickly followed the army, preparing for the siege. Chapter 147. The city wall was broken with a single saber. Kaiyan Prefecture was now occupied by the leader of the Paradise sect and a group of Taoists. The leader of the Paradise sect did not dare to show off in front of these Taoists. These Taoists were all powerful immortals. The reason why the Paradise sect could succeed this time, even blocking the imperial court's army to quell the rebellion, was because of the efforts of these immortals. Otherwise, he, as the leader of the rebels, would have been captured and beheaded by the imperial army to quell the rebellion long ago. Esteemed immortals, I wonder how long the Kaiyan Prefecture will be besieged by the imperial army this time. The food and fodder in the city may be a bit tight. Do you immortals have any ingenious methods? The leader of the Paradise sect asked cautiously. One of the Taoists in a grey robe spoke leisurely, "General, there's no need to worry. The food and fodder in Kaiyan Prefecture are enough for 3 months. Moreover, the city walls and gates have been reinforced by us using formations. Even the top qi condensation cultivators can't break through the city gate in a short time. And the imperial court can't send top qi condensation cultivators now. Although the imperial army is besieging us, their food and fodder can only last for 10 more days. After 10 days, the Imperial army will definitely retreat. At that time, we will have won this battle. Upon hearing this, the leader of the Paradise sect was overjoyed. The Paradise sect has now occupied several prefectures and it has defeated the Imperial army once before. If it defeated the Imperial army again this time, then in a short time, the Imperial court would find it difficult to dispatch a large army again. In this way, the reputation of the Paradise sect would surely soar. At that time, they could capture more cities, and even occupying a province was not impossible. Moreover, according to these immortals, Great Chan was now decadent and degenerate. Once the Paradise sect established its footing, there would surely be a response from all corners of Great Chan. At that time, when various forces rose up in rebellion, Great Chan would be overwhelmed and the Paradise sect could achieve its great cause. This made the leader of the Paradise sect extremely excited. Seeing the excited expression of the leader of the Paradise sect, the surrounding Taoists couldn't help but sneer in their hearts. A mere leader of the Paradise sect, an ignorant fool, also vying for the world. They supported the Paradise sect merely to probe the real strength of Great Chan, to see if the Great Chan royal family still has the ability to suppress the world. If the Great Chan royal family really couldn't do it anymore, they didn't even have to wait for the royal supreme elder to die. Many immortal sects could support more people to arise in rebellion, thereby causing chaos in the world. By then, Great Chan would collapse. The immortal sects could return to their state 1,000 years ago. High above, detached from the mundane, yet firmly controlling the entire world. As for Paradise sect, it was just a pawn. If it was useless by the time, they could easily get rid of it. This leader of the Paradise sect was still immersed in the excitement of great things to come. He was foolishly dreaming of becoming an emperor. How ridiculous. Report: the Imperial army has come to attack the city again. Attacking the city again? How many people have come this time? The leader of the Paradise sect asked hurriedly. One person. One person. The leader of the Paradise sect and the Taoists looked at each other. There was a hint of doubt in their eyes. Let's go to the city wall to take a look. So, everyone rushed towards the city wall. At this moment, the army to quell the rebellion had already assembled its soldiers and horses. Formations were set up. However, the army to quell the rebellion did not attack the city. They were quietly waiting in place. Lin Fei was among the army. He glanced at the city gate and wall of Kaiyuan Prefecture in the distance. It was a strong city. The city wall was tall and strong. Even without reinforcing with formations, it would also be very hard to break through. Not to mention, there were high-level chi condensation cultivators reinforcing it with formations. Such a formation, even top chi condensation cultivators would find it hard to break in a short time. Unless there was a very powerful magical artifact. Lin Fei no longer hesitated. He took a step forward. Whoosh! Lin Fei took 60 meters in one stride. In just a few steps, he had already arrived at the city gate of Kaiyuan Prefecture. On the city wall, the soldiers were all looking at each other. One man attacking the city. Shoot! Suddenly, the soldiers on the city wall began to shoot arrows. Arrows rained down like a downpour, but Lin Fei didn't move at all. Saber energy permeated his entire body. The rain of arrows hit him but all bounced off around him. It didn't hurt Lin Fei at all. At this moment, the leader of the Paradise sect and many Taoists had also arrived at the city wall. Seeing this scene, the leader of the Paradise sect was somewhat panicked and quickly asked, "Who is this? Is he an immortal master sent by the Imperial court?" The leader of the Paradise sect felt that if one could remain unharmed under so much arrow rain, it could only be the method of the immortal master. However, the expressions of these Taoists were very solemn, and they all shook their heads. This person is not a chi cultivator, but a martial artist. If I'm not mistaken, it should be the recently famous Immortal Slayer saber, Lin Fei of Great Chan. I didn't expect that the Imperial Court actually requested this person. Immortal Slayer saber Lin Fei. A martial artist with such a title. The leader of the Paradise sect felt that it somewhat subverted his understanding. Usually, these fairy masters were very arrogant, even innate martial artists, martial arts masters, these immortal masters did not take seriously. But now, mentioning this Immortal Slayer saber, Lin Fei, they all looked sullen. Even the leader of the Paradise sect could vaguely feel that these immortal masters seemed to be somewhat wary of the Immortal Slayer saber. Yes, wariness. At this point, the leader of the Paradise sect was sure he wasn't mistaken. Could it be that this Immortal Slayer saber, Lin Fei, is very powerful? The leader of the Paradise sect asked carefully. Powerful, although he is a martial artist, we have to admit, he is indeed very powerful. Immortal Slayer saber has slain 2 high-level Qi condensation cultivators from He Mountain Dao and a top Qi condensation cultivator from Guardian Primordial Mountain. The name Immortal Slayer saber is not just called, it's earned by killing. But no matter how powerful his Immortal Slayer saber is, he is no use before this army. Indeed, we have jointly used formations to strengthen the city walls and gates. How can he, a martial artist, break through? If he dares to climb the city wall, we will besiege him. No matter how powerful the Immortal Slayer saber is, he will inevitably be defeated under our many high-level Qi condensation cultivator sage. Cayenne Prefecture is still as solid as a rock. These Taoists were also somewhat confident in their words. Although the Immortal Slayer saber was strong, but he alone could not break Cayenne Prefecture. However, was it really so? The leader of the Paradise sect always felt that something was wrong. So he looked at the figure under the city again. At this moment, Lin Fei was also looking at the city gate and walls of Cayenne Prefecture. There were runes flashing on it. Indeed, there was the enhancement of formations. Formations? Lin Fei took a deep breath and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. No matter if it's a formation or a city wall. My saber can break it. Lin Fei did not hesitate any longer. The saber chi within his body was released without restraint. Boom. The surging saber chi gushed out from Lin Fei's body. A huge amount of saber energy condensed a giant saber in the void. 30 meters, 60 meters, 120 meters. Lin Fei's saber energy expanded crazily. In an instant, it reached 250 meters. 250 meters of saber energy spanned across the void. Cayenne Prefecture could be considered a fortified city with very high walls. However, the 250 meters of saber energy that Lin Fei displayed was more than twice as high as the city wall. Moreover, with the emergence of the 250 meters of saber energy, Lin Fei's saber intent also spread out, enveloping the sky above Cayenne Prefecture. Buzz. Suddenly, the city defending soldiers, originally holding a large saber, began to tremble violently and emit light sounds. What's going on? I can't pull out my saber. My saber seems to be attracted by some force. What kind of sorcery is this? Even the leader of the Paradise sect on the city wall turned pale, unable to hold his saber. Sorcery, this is sorcery. Humph, this is not any sorcery, this is saber intent. This saber intent is terrifying, but it can't affect the army. The only thing is this 250 meters saber glow in the void. This should be saber glow, right? I wonder how powerful this 250 meters saber glow is. It should not be able to break through the city gate reinforced by the formation. Seeing the 250 meters of saber energy in the void, these Qi condensation cultivators mistook it for saber glow and were uncertain. Even if they had confidence in the formation, who had seen 250 meters of saber energy. Heavenly saber art, slash. At this moment, Lin Fei, like a divine being, was demonstrating supreme power. He slashed out this saber from the void. Immediately, the massive 250 meters of saber energy slashed toward the city wall ferociously. Yes, not the city gate, but the city wall. Lin Fei directly slashed toward the city wall. The 250 meters of saber energy landed on the city wall. The formation on the city wall was almost instantly broken at the touch. Boom. The formation was broken and it was instantly cut open by the violent saber energy as if it were tofu. Boom. Finally, the 250 meters of saber energy fell on the city wall. The sturdy city wall actually collapsed with a loud bang. A huge gap appeared in the long city wall. For a moment, the entire battlefield fell silent. Looking at the figure of Lin Fei under the city wall, everyone's eyes were incredibly shocked. Immortal Slayer Saber Lin Fei, in front of the two armies, broke the city wall with a single slash. Chapter 148. Unexpected Joy, Heavenly Saber Art Perfection. Though the city wall is broken. Looking at that huge gap, the leader of the Paradise sect was stunned, with an undeniable look of fear in his eyes. He was afraid. 250 meters of saber energy descending from the sky, who could stop it? Lin Fei was a martial artist. Is there such a powerful martial artist? He'd believe it if one said Lin Fei was a god. What to do, what to do? The city wall is broken, it can't be blocked at all. Immortal Masters, quickly find a way to remedy this. The leader of the Paradise sect urgently sought help from the cultivators beside him. However, these Chi cultivators, upon seeing the huge gap in the city wall and Immortal Slayer Saber Lin Fei standing below the wall, looked at each other and understood each other's intentions. Retreat. Almost without any hesitation, the several Chi cultivators immediately left the city wall and even Cayenne Prefecture. They retreated. After all, with the city wall broken, what could they do? Besides, Immortal Slayer Saber Lin Fei was right below the city. They were confident and didn't put martial artists in their eyes. But this did not include the Immortal Slayer Saber. After all, Immortal Slayer Saber made his great name known by killing countless Chi cultivators. They did not want to become souls under Lin Fei's saber. So, the several Chi cultivators left very simply, without any hesitation. As for the leader of the Paradise sect, they didn't care about him at all. At this moment, the leader of the Paradise sect was slightly stunned. It seemed that he hadn't reacted yet to why the cultivators disappeared. Immortal Masters, why did you leave? What should I do? What about the Paradise sect? The leader of the Paradise sect glanced at the huge gap in the city wall. He also didn't dare to stay. He immediately said, quickly, retreat first, leave Cayenne Prefecture. The leader of the Paradise sect didn't even dare to take many people with him. He just hoped that the cannon fodder of Cayenne Prefecture could hold back some of the Imperial troops and then he could escape smoothly. Lin Fei saw the movement on the city wall. Regardless of the departure of those Chi cultivators or the leader of the Paradise sect, Lin Fei didn't care. He and Li Yuhu had agreed before that he would break the city gate and Li Yuhu would lead the troops to quell the rebellion. Now, Lin Fei didn't break the city gate but collapsed the city wall. And those Chi cultivators just left, they did not obstruct the Imperial army. So Lin Fei had no interest in chasing them. Besides, he might not even be able to catch up with them. As for capturing Cayenne Prefecture and annihilating the rebel forces, that was Li Yuhu's job. At this moment, the morale of the Imperial troops soared. Their side had someone like Lin Fei, who was like a god. What was there to be afraid of? Li Yuhu, as an experienced veteran, made a decisive decision and immediately ordered, enter the city and annihilate the rebels. The army began to charge. Countless Imperial troops, mighty and majestic, rushed into Cayenne Prefecture through the gap in the city wall. Lin Fei still stood in place, motionless. Because the voice of the system unexpectedly sounded in his mind. Your saber intent, because you broke the city wall with one saber, is greatly encouraged and excited. Its training progress has increased by 10%. Your true intention scroll, because you broke the city wall with one saber, is greatly encouraged and excited. Its training progress has increased by 10%. Your heavenly saber art, because you broke the city wall with one saber, greatly displaying the might of heavenly saber art and being excited, its training progress has increased by 50%. Your heavenly saber art is broken through to perfection. A glint flashed in Lin Fei's eyes. Unexpectedly, he could gain so much from breaking the city wall with one saber in front of both armies. The increase in the true intention scroll and saber intent was fine. The magnitude of the increase was not large. But the heavenly saber art had increased by a full 50%. This was extraordinary. It directly allowed heavenly saber art to reach perfection from transcendence. Lin Fei closed his eyes. He carefully sorted out the memories in his mind. There was an additional bundle of memories in his mind. It is the memory of heavenly saber art. Or rather, the memory of heavenly saber art's perfection. Heavenly saber art perfection can condense a heavenly saber. When the heavenly saber appears, all sabers bow their heads. When you cast the heavenly saber, you can possess a heavenly saber momentum, which forms a huge suppression on all saber users. Even if it's not a saber user, even chi cultivators and martial arts masters can be suppressed by at least 20% of their strength. For those whose will is not firm, even more strength is suppressed. The more Lin Fei examined the memory, the more shocked he was. This heavenly saber art, once it reached perfection, was completely different from the fierce saber and the tyrant saber he had condensed before. Or to say, it was on two different levels. Only by condensing the heavenly saber could one truly be considered a heavenly saber art practitioner. Both the fierce saber and the tyrant saber were just transitional phases of the heavenly saber. Their power didn't even amount to 1/10 of the heavenly saber. Only heavenly saber art perfection could condense the true heavenly saber. System. Lin Fei immediately called up the system panel to check his martial arts status. Host, Lin Fei. Martial arts realm, innate martial artist. Master, late stage. True intention scroll, late stage, progress 42%. Saber intent, transcendence, progress 56%. Fist intent, mastery, progress 81%. Heavenly saber art, perfection, progress 0%. Immeasurable fist, transcendence, progress 50%. Close yet distant, transcendence, progress 0%. Lin Fei's saber intent had moved a step closer to perfection. Even the true intention scroll had improved a lot. This time, Lin Fei didn't expect to have an unexpected gain. Lin Fei raised his head. He saw that on the city wall of Kaiyan Prefecture, the flag of the Paradise sect had fallen and it was replaced with the flag of the Imperial Court again. This indicated that the battle was going smoothly. Lin Fei took a step forward and directly arrived at Kaiyan Prefecture. There were bodies everywhere, most of them were Paradise sect rebels. The entire Kaiyan Prefecture was filled with the smell of blood. Soon, a squad of soldiers came to Lin Fei. They respectfully said to Lin Fei, "The general invites Master Lin to the Yamen." Lin Fei nodded and followed the soldiers to the Yamen. Li Yuhu was in the Yamen. "Master Lin, you came just in time. We have captured the leader of the rebels. We have learned about the situation in detail. These rebels really are a rebel. The cities they occupied before basically had no troops. Now that the rebels have suffered a great defeat, they no longer have the strength to fight. Other cities will soon be recaptured by the Imperial Army. In less than 10 days, the rebellion will be completely quelled." Li Yuhu was very excited. This was a great achievement. Originally, Li Yuhu was almost at the end of his rope. If it weren't for Lin Fei, the official army might have had to retreat due to a lack of food. perhaps they would have been ambushed by the rebels and suffered a defeat. Fortunately, Lin Fei came. With Lin Fei, Li Yuhu was able to completely crush the rebels and suppress the Paradise Sect rebellion. 10 days. That's good. General Li, the task of cleaning up the rebels is left to you. Lin Fei nodded. Suppressing the rebellion in 10 days. He was quite satisfied. Master Lin, there's one more thing. According to the confessions of the rebel leader, there were several unidentified Taoists who helped them defend Kaiyan Prefecture. However, those Taoists, after Master Lin slashed the city wall with one saber, all fled in all directions, their whereabouts unknown. Li Yuhu was a bit wary of these fleeing Taoists. After all, they were all Qi cultivators. Their methods were mysterious and unpredictable. Let them run. They wouldn't dare to come back. If they dare to, Lin will cut them down with one saber. Lin Fei said indifferently. Killing Qi cultivators was Lin Fei's most skilled technique. After all, he was the Immortal Slayer saber. When the saber comes out, immortals must be slain. Chapter 149. Capture the saber technique, force integration. Outside of Kaiyan Prefecture. 4 Taoists looked at the fiery Kaiyan Prefecture. Vaguely, there were still bursts of killing shouts. They knew that Kaiyan Prefecture was done for and the Paradise Sect was also finished. Suppressing this rebellion was just a matter of time. Fellow Taoists, this time the royal family actually invited the Immortal Slayer Saber to quell the rebellion. It seems that we have lost this time. Great Chan can also take a breather for now, which is not good for our major immortal sects. That's right, the biggest reason for this failure is the appearance of Immortal Slayer Saber Lin Fei. This Immortal Slayer Saber Lin Fei first slayed a Qi cultivator of He Mountain Dao, then killed my top Qi cultivator of Guardian Primordial Mountain, now disrupting the major events of our immortal sects. Lin Fei is from 9 Profound Sect. And the 9 Profound Sect has always been very close to the royal family. This Lin Fei must be removed. Otherwise, in the future, he will still ruin our big plans. However, Lin Fei is the Immortal Slayer Saber. Even Yuan Ganza, a top Qi condensation cultivator, was killed by him with one saber. Even if there are a few more top Qi condensation cultivators, they may not be his opponents. Do we have to ask for Qi condensation perfection or a foundation establishment true person to come out? For a while, the 4 Taoists also fell into silence. Qi condensation perfection was impossible to come out of. No matter what happened, nothing was as important as Qi condensation perfection cultivator establishing their foundation. So, the Qi condensation perfection cultivator cannot come down the mountain. As for foundation establishment true person, that's even less likely to come down the mountain. The true persons were waiting for the royal family's supreme elder to pass away. If the true person moved, in case the royal family's supreme elder took a few true persons down with him before he died, that would be in trouble. No sect could afford such a loss. So, foundation establishment true person cannot come down the mountain. At least, before the death of the royal family's supreme elder, there couldn't be a foundation establishment true person coming down the mountain. Fellow Taoists, don't forget, we are Qi cultivators. Our strength as Qi cultivators is not just spells, talismans, and magical artifacts, but also arrays. Our Guardian Primordial Mountain has an array called the 5 Directions Killing Array. If 5 top Qi cultivators set up the array together, below foundation establishment, death is certain. For a while, the eyes of the 4 Taoists flickered with excitement. It seemed that they were all weighing the situation. Our Guardian Primordial Mountain can dispatch a top Qi cultivator. After all, Lin Fei killed Elder Yuan Ganze. This is a great revenge, and it must be avenged. He Mountain Dao has sealed the mountain, but they should be able to be contacted. Given the current situation of Great Chan, the royal family's supreme elder can't do anything to He Mountain Dao. Lin Fei stepped on a mountain Dao to achieve the reputation of Immortal Slayer Saber. They should be able to send a top chi condensation cultivator. We, Purple Sun Mountain, can also send a top chi condensation cultivator. Our mysterious Sky Cave can also send a top chi condensation cultivator. And we, Tai Sect, can also send a top chi condensation cultivator. Good, in this way, the 5 directions killing array can be formed. Now we will return to our sects first. As quickly as 3 days or as slow as 10 days, there will surely be top chi condensation cultivators coming down. By then, Lin Fei must die. The 4 Taoists did not stay any longer. They quickly dispersed and moved far away from Cayenne Prefecture. Longshan City was the last city occupied by the rebels because they had nowhere to go. Therefore, this time the rebels held the city in defense. In order to survive, the rebels also began to fight desperately. This caused great losses to the official army. In the end, Li Yuhu invited Lin Fei. Then, Lin Fei swung his saber, generating 250 meters of saber energy. Just like in Cayenne Prefecture, the city wall collapsed instantly. As a result, Longshan City was naturally retaken by the royal army. The last force of the rebels was also annihilated. At this point, the entire Paradise sect was annihilated. The rebellion was completely suppressed. Starting from the day Lin Fei arrived at Cayenne Prefecture, it took only 5 days. The army completely suppressed the rebellion. Immortal Slayer Saber, Senior Lin. At this time, a young man dressed as a martial artist came to Lin Fei. I am passionate about saber techniques. In the world today, when it comes to saber techniques, you are at the top, Senior Lin. I want to become your disciple, I hope you agree. Become my disciple. Lin Fei looked up and down at the man. The perfection stage saber technique, One Leaf Saber technique, was captured by your heavenly saber art. Your heavenly saber art forcibly integrated the One Leaf Saber technique, improving the practice progress by 1%. Lin Fei was slightly surprised. Capture the saber technique. And it can even increase the progress of practicing the heavenly saber art. Is this characteristic that appears after the heavenly saber art reaches perfection? Lin Fei immediately reacted. Once the heavenly saber art reached perfection, its nature was quite domineering, directly capturing other saber techniques to enhance its own foundation. Although the heavenly saber art was already at perfection, the practice progress could still be improved. And it was improved through this technique of forcibly capturing other saber techniques. Once the practice progress reached 100% again, there was a high probability that the heavenly saber art would generate saber intent. At that time, Lin Fei would have 2 types of saber intent. Even the 2 types of saber intent might merge. To what extent would the practice progress of the saber intent improve then? For a moment, many thoughts flashed through Lin Fei's mind. Senior. Seeing that Lin Fei didn't respond, the martial artist couldn't help but carefully reminded him again. Are you practicing the One Leaf Saber technique? Lin Fei asked. The man was slightly startled and then nodded. Senior has keen eyes. I'm indeed practicing the One Leaf Saber technique. And I have already practiced it to perfection. I understand. After Lin Fei finished speaking, he turned around and walked away directly. If you want to practice the saber, go to the 9 Profound Sect. I do not take disciples. Lin Fei's voice came from afar. He had already walked far away. The man could only stare blankly at Lin Fei's retreating figure. Lin Fei arrived at the government office and found General Li Yuhe. General Li, the rebellion has been completely suppressed and I should return to Chang City. Master Lin is leaving. Li Yuhe was slightly startled. Since Lin Fei arrived, he found that fighting didn't seem difficult at all. It was even quite simple. When encountering rebels defending the city, Lin Fei made a move, one saber strike, and the city wall was broken. When encountering tough nuts to crack, Lin Fei made a move, one saber strike, and all rebel leaders were killed. With such a powerhouse present, Li Yuhu became someone who picked up the credit. I have some things to do back in Chan City. General Li, we shall part here. After saying that, Lin Fei turned around and left. The system's voice just now in his mind made Lin Fei vaguely understand a direction. The way to further improve Heavenly Saber art was to find some saber practitioners. Especially powerful saber practitioners. Preferably those who have perfected the saber technique. In this way, Lin Fei's Heavenly Saber art could continue to capture those martial arts to merge and increase its foundation. Someday, if he practiced the saber intent and merged it with the current saber intent, then Lin Fei's saber intent might increase instantly. It could even reach the realm of perfection. This was the domineering of Heavenly Saber art. Lin Fei finally understood the phrase in Heavenly Saber art. When the Heavenly Saber appears, all other sabers bow. Once the Heavenly Saber reaches perfection, it could almost suppress all lower-level saber techniques. Lin Fei left Longshan City. He rushed towards Chan City all the way. This time he helped the Imperial Court suppress the Paradise Sect rebellion. Once he returned to Chan City, he could watch the martial arts secret records. At that time, whether what Liu Yibai said was true or false, Lin Fei could tell by himself. As Lin Fei got closer to Chan City, there were fewer and fewer refugees. Lin Fei was a bit strange. Even if the court suppressed the rebellion, refugees had already become refugees. It was impossible to disappear all at once. Even when Lin Fei arrived at a bamboo forest, it was very quiet around. There was not a single refugee. Something is wrong. Lin Fei suddenly stopped. His eyes were keenly looking around. But it was already too late. The next moment, the environment around turned blood-red all at once. It had suddenly become a bloody space here and enveloped Lin Fei instantly. Chapter 150. The 5 Directions Killing Array. A formation array. Lin Fei surveyed this blood-hued domain. The potent fluctuations of spiritual power instantly clarified his understanding. It was an array formed by Qi cultivators. Lin Fei, stepping into our 5 Directions Killing Array, arranged by 5 top-tier Qi condensation cultivators, your death is certain. Within the bloody space, a chorus of voices echoed, yet Lin Fei couldn't discern their origins. Such was the nature of an array. Qi cultivators had methods to conceal their aura and location. 5 top-tier Qi condensation cultivators. You truly hold me in high regard. Lin Fei's tone remained calm, his mind was equally serene. In such moments, one must maintain a cool head. Since this 5 Directions Killing Array was the collective effort of 5 top-tier Qi condensation cultivators, it suggested that they hold considerable confidence to kill Lin Fei through this array. Cowards, come out. A glint flashed within Lin Fei's eyes. Boom. Instantaneously, his saber intent erupted. Transcendent saber intent, mighty and overwhelming, blanketed the entire crimson expanse in an instant. Lin Fei's saber intent wasn't intended to break the 5 Directions Killing Array. It was to locate the positions of the 5 Qi cultivators. Only then could he execute them. Only by executing them, perhaps, could he break this array. However, as Lin Fei unfurled his overwhelming saber intent, it proved to be of no avail. Even his saber intent seemed to be suppressed within a certain area. This 5 Directions Killing Array could even suppress saber intent. Lin Fei, don't waste your energy. We are operating the array from outside the 5 Directions Killing Array. Unless you can break the 5 Directions Killing Array, otherwise you can't touch us. However, you have no hope. 5 Directions Killing Array, unleash the sword energy. As the words of the Qi cultivator fell, within the 5 Directions Killing Array, strands of sword energy appeared. These strands of sword energy were finer than silkworm thread. This was the transformation of sword energy into the thread. The sword energy appearing as fine as thread, it didn't seem very powerful. But in reality, transforming sword energy into thread could amplify the sharpness attribute of sword energy to its peak. Its sole trait was sharpness, capable of slicing through everything. Moreover, it wasn't a single thread, but the entirety of the 5 directions killing array filled with these sword threads. Even a martial arts grandmaster within this 5 directions killing array would likely die instantly. There would be no room for struggle. After all, a grandmaster's innate true chi hadn't yet reached the extent of withstanding so many sword threads. Saber energy encompasses the body. Yet Lin Fei exhibited not the slightest panic. With a flicker of thought, saber energy covered his entire body, leaving no crevices exposed. Hiss. Subsequently, within the blood-colored space, the sky filled with sword threads began to slice at Lin Fei. Each strand of sharp sword energy, when cutting across Lin Fei, collided with the saber energy enveloping him. Instantly, the sword energy dissipated into nothingness. Swiftly, the sword energy within the blood-colored space was consumed completely. At this moment, outside the 5 directions killing array, the faces of the 5 top-tier chi condensation cultivators darkened upon observing the situation within the array. Immortal Slayer Saber isn't easily killed, otherwise, why would it necessitate the 5 of us, top-tier chi condensation cultivators, to form an array to surround and kill him? Indeed, this was only the first killing array. The 5 directions killing array has a total of 5 killing arrays, each more formidable than the last. If the sword energy array can't kill him, activate the second killing array. With the 5 top-tier chi condensation cultivators urging the array, the entire 5 directions killing array underwent another transformation. The sword energy had already vanished. Next, the blood-colored space seemed to ignite. The entirety of the bloody space suddenly turned a fiery red. 5 directions killing array, blood flame kill. Lin Fei's internal chi and blood seemed to tremble, fatally drawn by the surrounding bloody flames as if about to ignite. This was the blood flame kill. Roaring flames of fire capable of reducing any person's blood to ash. But Lin Fei's body was encompassed by saber energy and remained unshakable. Unless his saber energy was broken, otherwise, Lin Fei was impervious. Cold ice kill. Bone erosion kill. 4 consecutive layers of killing arrays, all powerless against Lin Fei. But Lin Fei hadn't taken action all this while. Because he hadn't discovered a weak point in the 5 directions killing array. Just now, he had already used a few tactics, attempting to destroy the 5 directions killing array, but he found that he could not break it. Even Lin Fei's saber energy was formidable, it too had its limits. When dealing with an array, as long as the weak point of the array was found, breaking the array becomes easy. Otherwise, even with 10 or 100 times the power, it was still not necessarily breakable. 4 layers of killing arrays were unable to handle Lin Fei. It seems we can only resort to the final layer of the killing array. With this final layer of the killing array, Lin Fei is bound to die. 5 directions killing array, heavenly thunder kill. Suddenly, the thunder rolled. A massive thunderbolt descended from the sky, directly bombing into the 5 directions killing array. However, in this instant, Lin Fei immediately perceived the auras of the 5 chi condensation cultivators. The 5 directions killing array, upon the thunderbolt's bombardment, finally revealed a flaw. At this moment, Lin Fei did not hesitate. Heavenly Saber Art, / Boon. Instantly, Lin Fei employed the Heavenly Saber Art. 250 meters of saber energy, exuding terrifying power and following the direction of the thunderbolt's descent, which was the only flaw in the entire 5 directions killing array. The Heavenly Saber, condensed by Lin Fei, slashed down mercilessly. Boon. The 250 meters saber energy Heavenly Saber directly split the massive thunderbolt. Next, the overwhelming saber energy fiercely landed on the unobstructed killing array. Crack. Finally, the unobstructed killing array shattered. The surrounding blood-colored space also disappeared. Lin Fei's vision returned to normal. He stood 5 unfamiliar chi condensation cultivators before him. The fluctuations of spiritual power in their bodies were exceedingly terrifying. Clearly, they were all top-tier chi condensation cultivators. How could he break the 5 directions killing array? How is this possible? The 5 directions killing array couldn't kill him. How could he directly split the final heavenly thunder kill with saber energy? What a terrifying saber energy! Can a martial artist without a foundation stage be so strong? The array has been broken, we can't kill him anymore, let's go. The 5 top-tier chi condensation cultivators, seeing that the situation was hopeless, immediately prepared to flee. Under normal circumstances, if a chi cultivator wanted to leave, a martial artist certainly couldn't hold them back. After all, chi cultivators have magical artifacts. Controlling magical artifacts allows them to directly ascend and fly. And martial artists? Even a martial arts grandmaster cannot fly. Only upon achieving martial state can one's body undergo a rebirth and then possess various martial arts divine abilities, and walking on air would no longer be a difficult feat. But in the innate realm, the methods of martial artists were far inferior to those of these chi cultivators. The 5 top-tier chi condensation cultivators were also quite decisive. They directly employed their magical artifacts and immediately turned into 5 streaks of rainbow light, attempting to escape. If it were in the past, Lin Fei truly wouldn't be able to do anything about these 5. However, Lin Fei's heavenly saber art has now reached perfection. He did have a few tricks up his sleeve. Want to escape? Lin Fei's eyes narrowed slightly, his saber chi erupted once again. Heavenly saber art. With the implementation of the heavenly saber art, 250 meters of saber energy was again condensed in the void. This is the heavenly saber. With the appearance of the heavenly saber, not only was there saber intent but also a peculiar power. It was like a large net, instantly enveloping the bodies of the 5 top-tier chi condensation cultivators. Boom! Immediately, the 5 top-tier chi condensation cultivators felt a jolt throughout their bodies. Even the spiritual power within their bodies was somewhat suppressed. What's happening? Our spiritual power is being suppressed. What kind of technique is this? Even the martial Dao true intent doesn't have this kind of capability. The 5 top-tier chi condensation cultivators were flustered. They couldn't escape. Is this the power of the heavenly saber under the state of perfection? Under the power of the heavenly saber, the enemy's strength will be suppressed. It's as if they are burdened by a heavy mountain. What to escape? Their speed could be instantly slowed, enough for me to kill with one saber. Lin Fei looked at the 5 top-tier chi condensation cultivators, whose speed sharply dropped. Even though he was very shocked by the effect of the heavenly saber's power, Lin Fei didn't hesitate at all. Slash! Immediately, Lin Fei's saber energy divided into 5, instantly slashing toward the 5 top-tier chi condensation cultivators. No. The 5 top-tier chi condensation cultivators never expected that this would happen. Their attempt to surround and kill Lin Fei failed, and even escaping turned out to be a luxury. Consequently, they let out terrified screams. They were all top-tier chi condensation cultivators. In theory, they all had the opportunity to establish their foundation. Who would want to die here? Foot. However, Lin Fei's saber energy didn't care about that. Each saber energy was more than 30 meters long. With a slash of the saber, the bodies of the 5 top-tier chi condensation cultivators were cut in half by the saber energy. With a thud, they fell to the ground from midair. The 5 chi condensation cultivators fell. Lin Fei, with a single saber, slaughtered the 5 top-tier chi condensation cultivators. Chapter 151. How strong is foundation establishment true person? Lin Fei approached the bodies of the 5 top-tier Qi condensation cultivators. Their bodies had been cleaved into 2 by the saber energy. There was absolutely no chance of survival. Lin Fei was not worried about any feigned death. Even if Qi cultivators had unusual techniques, under these circumstances, they were surely dead. However, Lin Fei needed to ascertain the identities of these 5 top-tier Qi condensation cultivators. After all, so far, the immortal sects that Lin Fei had offended were really only the He Mountain Dao and the Guardian Primordial Mountain. The 2 immortal sects sending out 5 top-tier Qi condensation cultivators, Lin Fei found it somewhat unlikely. Hence, Lin Fei searched through the 5 bodies, seeking the identities of these 5 top-tier Qi condensation cultivators. After searching for a while, Lin Fei figured out the identities of the 5 Qi condensation cultivators. Guardian Primordial Mountain, He Mountain Dao, Purple Sun Mountain, Mysterious Sky Cave, and Tai Sect, 5 major immortal sects in total. I can understand Guardian Primordial Mountain and He Mountain Dao. I've killed Qi cultivators from them, so it's normal for them to want revenge. But what about Purple Sun Mountain, Mysterious Sky Cave, and Tai Sect? I've never even heard of these 3 immortal sects before. Lin Fei's brow furrowed slightly. The intervention of these 3 immortal sects, even dispatching 5 top-tier Qi condensation cultivators to besiege him, was not normal. Immortal sects were not monolithic. It wasn't a given that the He Mountain Dao and Guardian Primordial Mountain, by inviting these sects, would definitely have Qi condensation cultivators act. Qi condensation cultivators were, in fact, experts at calculating. Why would they do anything without benefits? Could it be that these 3 sects are actually related to the rebel forces? Lin Fei had a thought. He considered a possibility. These sects were probably the backers of the Paradise Sect rebels. Lin Fei had helped the court to suppress the rebel army, resolving the rebellion. These 5 major immortal sects saw him as a threat, so they wanted to eliminate him in advance. This made sense. 5 major immortal sects. All should be killed. If I become a martial saint, I will trample these 5 major immortal sects. A glint of coldness flashed in Lin Fei's eyes. He didn't care what these 5 major immortal sects were plotting, but they supported the Paradise Sect rebellion. Moreover, this rebellion was instigated by these 5 major immortal sects. All Lin Fei saw along the way were fields of white barns. Millions of people were displaced. That's all because of this rebellion incited by the 5 major immortal sects. The direct or indirect deaths due to this amounted to hundreds of thousands. Lin Fei could not turn a blind eye. However, immortal sects had magical treasures to guard their sects. At least for now, Lin Fei was powerless against them. I have to return to Chang City first. Lin Fei did not linger. With a step, he was instantly on his way back to Chang City. Chang City, the Imperial Palace. Lin Fei had a token given by the Emperor. Therefore, he could directly enter the palace. Lin Fei arrived at the Ascending Dragon Chamber and saw the 3 elders from before. I have assisted the court army in suppressing the Paradise Sect rebellion. Should I be able to read the martial arts secret records left by the ancestor now? Lin Fei calmly said. The 3 elders looked at Lin Fei with complex expressions. Although the official report had not yet reached the court, they had already learned through some intelligence about Lin Fei's visit to the front lines and the specific battle situation. Lin Fei collapsed a city wall with one saber strike, scaring 4 high-level Qi condensation cultivators into flame. The court army, in just a few days, quelled all the rebellion as if breaking a bamboo. The efficiency was high. This shocked all 3 elders of the royal family. Of course, they were still unaware of Lin Fei's midway killing of 5 top-tier Qi condensation cultivators. It's estimated that those immortal sects might not necessarily spread the news. But even so, it was already enough to stun the elders of the royal family. Master Lin, you may read the martial arts secret records left by the ancestor. Please follow me." Thus, one of the elders rose. He took Lin Fei to a secret room. The martial arts secret records left by the ancestor are in this secret room. There's no time limit, Master Lin. You can read as long as you want. But there's one rule. You cannot copy nor disclose the contents. Lin Fei nodded. Actually, the second rule, not to disclose the contents, was very hard for the royal family to monitor. Even the rule of not copying was hard to monitor. If Lin Fei secretly memorized and then wrote it down himself, there would be no problem. However, there was no need for that. Those who could view the martial arts secret records were extremely confident in themselves. If they wanted to leave it for future generations, they could just succeed in foundation building and become a martial saint in the future. By then, these pieces of information would become left by the mouth of a martial saint. The royal family would have nothing to say. Rumble. The stone door of the secret room fell. Only Lin Fei was left in the secret room. Lin Fei sat cross-legged. He grabbed the martial arts secret records from the stone table. The martial arts secret records were engraved on sheets of paper that were neither gold nor jade. Even after hundreds of years, there was no change. Lin Fei opened the martial arts secret records. Page by page, he scrutinized very carefully. The further he read, the more solemn his expression became. About half an hour later, Lin Fei had finished reading the martial arts secret records. He directly closed it. The content of the martial arts secret records was divided into several parts. One part was the personal experience of the Great Chan's ancestor. For example, the Great Chan's ancestor initially accidentally discovered an ancient sect's relics from 1,000 years ago. In there, he found many martial arts secret scripts. Then he made rapid progress and became a martial arts grandmaster. Moreover, in that ancient sect, he also discovered a 1,000-year-old blood orchid that was still growing. With this 1,000-year-old blood orchid, the Great Chan's ancestor achieved physical perfection, which allowed him to successfully build his foundation and become a martial saint. He later swept across the world and established Great Chan. Another part was some of the Great Chan's ancestors' martial arts insights and some martial arts common knowledge. For example, the Great Chan's ancestor learned from the ancient texts of that sect. Martial saint was not the end of martial arts. Above martial saint, there are even stronger existences. The perfection of martial Dao true intent was not the limit either. After the perfection of martial Dao true intent comes momentum. For example, sword intent transforms into sword momentum. Saber intent transforms into saber momentum. Once martial Dao true intent transforms into momentum, one can suppress others with their momentum. In the momentum of a martial artist, one can suppress enemies and weaken their strength. Once a martial artist comprehends momentum, they are comparable to a martial saint. The difference between a martial saint with and without momentum is like night and day. Great Chan's ancestor was fortunate enough to comprehend momentum. So, he was able to sweep through all opposition as a martial saint. Even those foundation establishment true persons were not Great Chan's ancestors' opponents. This momentum immediately reminded Lin Fei of his heavenly saber art. Once the heavenly saber art was perfected, one could have the momentum of the heavenly saber. It could also suppress enemies. However, compared to the momentum mentioned by Great Chan's ancestor, capable of suppressing foundation establishment true persons, the momentum of the heavenly saber was clearly much weaker. At most, it could be considered a weakened version of momentum. Lin Fei speculated. Most likely, this heavenly saber art was passed down from a martial arts sect from 1,000 years ago. It was probably created based on the momentum of a martial saint. But even a weakened version of momentum was very powerful. The last part was about cultivation techniques. Great Chan's ancestor left behind a cultivation technique. This cultivation technique was obtained from the scriptures of a sect from 1,000 years ago. It was called refining the golden body. It was not a particularly profound martial arts technique, but an auxiliary cultivation method used specifically to absorb some heaven and earth treasures or the flesh and blood of exotic beasts. It allowed martial artists to avoid waste when consuming heaven and earth treasures or the flesh and blood of exotic beasts. It could significantly increase the efficiency of consumption, allowing the body to achieve perfection faster. Once the body had achieved perfection, this cultivation method becomes irrelevant. This was a very common auxiliary cultivation method 1,000 years ago. So, Great Chan's ancestor also left it behind to help future generations have a greater chance of achieving physical perfection. Moreover, from the martial arts secret records left by the ancestor, in order for a martial artist to build their foundation and become a martial sage, the physical body did need to reach perfection, and to reach physical perfection, one must consume some heaven and earth treasures or the flesh and blood of exotic beasts. That is to say, one must rely on external help. In fact, Qi cultivators also need to rely on external help when building their foundations. The spiritual herbs needed for the refinement of foundation establishment pills were precious. Most of the major sects had some blessed lands where they could cultivate these spiritual herbs. Therefore, they could barely refine foundation establishment pills. However, martial arts sects didn't have any blessed lands. Even if some sects were strong enough to keep exotic beasts during their prime, after the decline of martial arts, they gradually lost this ability, making it difficult to even find traces of an exotic beast now. That is to say, what Liu Yibai said is all true. Exotic beasts are hard to find. The exotic beasts that Liu Yibai knows about might be the only remaining exotic beasts in Great Chan. If I miss this opportunity, even if my martial arts talent is strong, I will end up like the ancestor of the 9 profound sect, unable to reach physical perfection and forever unable to build my foundation. In the end, I can only sit and transform on the ancestral master peak, becoming a mound of yellow earth. Lin Fei seemed to be able to feel the despair of the 9 profound sect's founder when he saw the martial arts secret records. At that time, the founder of the 9 profound sect must have known about reaching physical perfection and building a foundation. He even searched the entire Great Chan but couldn't find any traces of exotic beasts. The martial arts secret records left by Great Chan's ancestor were his only chance. He wanted to see if he could find other ways to build a foundation. Unfortunately, the founder of the 9 profound sect eventually left in disappointment. Lin Fei closed the martial arts secret records. He had understood everything he needed to know. As for refining the golden body, it's very simple. Lin Fei slightly recalled the method of refining the golden body in his mind. Immediately, the system's voice sounded in his mind. Your martial arts technique, refining the golden body, due to the absence of exotic beast flesh and blood, is like a good wife with no rice to cook. The progress of practice is zero. Lin Fei was not too surprised. This martial arts technique was only useful when consuming the flesh and blood of exotic beasts. At other times, there was not even a hint of improvement. Lin Fei got up and left the secret room. Master Lin, you came out so soon. The 3 old men of the royal family were somewhat surprised to see Lin Fei coming out so soon. After all, anyone who sees the martial arts secret records would carefully ponder and check, staying in the secret room for several days, which was quite common. But Lin Fei took less than 2 hours before he came out. I have already got the answer from the martial arts secret records. Therefore, naturally, I came out. But there is one last thing. The Supreme Elder previously said that if I suppress the rebellion, he might even meet me. Now, I just want to ask the Supreme Elder to agree to one thing. I want to know, how strong is Foundation Establishment true person? Lin Fei's eyes were sharp as a saber and there was a hint of fighting intent on his body. Due to cultural differences, you might feel confused about certain expressions, so I'll provide explanations for some phrases. In Chinese culture, bamboo is often regarded as a symbol of strength and resilience. Therefore, breaking a bamboo is used to describe a person or attains unstoppable momentum, progress, victory, or achievement, just like the breaking of bamboo that cannot be hindered. Chapter 152. I have a saber, please try it. How audacious, Lin Fei, do you realize what you're saying? The three elders of the royal family's faces instantly changed. What was Lin Fei doing? He was actually thinking about challenging the supreme elder of the royal family. One must know the supreme elder of the royal family within the royal family was like a steadfast pillar. His prestige was unimaginably high. Lin Fei's disrespect naturally made the three elders furious. However, Lin Fei's expression remained calm. At this point in time, Lin Fei had already slain 6 top-tier chi condensation cultivators. The power of the 5 directions killing array set up by the 5 top-tier chi condensation cultivators earlier was even more formidable than a perfect chi condensation cultivator. Now the only thing that can make Lin Fei feel cautious was only foundation establishment. Foundation establishment was very mysterious and high above. Like a dragon that is often heard but seldom seen. Even though Lin Fei had heard of Foundation Establishment True Person many times now. Great Chan's ancestor, Hidden Sword Sect Sword Sate, and the Foundation Establishment True Persons of various major sects, etc. However, Lin Fei had never seen even one of them, let alone sparring with them. Lin Fei really wanted to try where was his current limit. Or to put it another way, where was the gap between him and Foundation Establishment? A martial artist should be fearless and dauntless. He should have the courage to battle against heaven and earth. I just want to see the gap between me and Foundation Establishment. True person, won't you even grant me this small request? Lin Fei suddenly looked up, looking at the ceiling. There was nothing on the ceiling of the ascending dragon chamber. However, Lin Fei seemed to have pierced through the ascending dragon chamber. Even through countless distances, he seemed to see a Foundation Establishment True Person with an immortal demeanor somewhere. Supreme Elder of the royal family. Lin Fei believed that at this moment, whatever he saw, the Supreme Elder of the royal family would definitely know. Even more so, the saber intent on Lin Fei gradually began to rise. Facing the transcendent saber intent, even the 3 elders of the royal family, high-level chi condensation cultivators, couldn't help but take a few steps back. They looked at Lin Fei with shock and awe on their faces. The Immortal Slayer saber was renowned. They were no match for him. Lin Fei, I hope you don't misjudge yourself. The Supreme Elder is the pillar of our royal family and even of Great Chan. How can you challenge him at will? Not to mention you, even if the founder of 9 Profound Sect were to reincarnate, he wouldn't dare to speak to the Supreme Elder like that. The 3 elders' faces were dark and they reprimanded loudly. However, Lin Fei didn't pay any heed. Instead, he continued to gaze at the ceiling. After a long time, a sigh echoed. Enough. Since you've made a request, I will satisfy you. Bring Lin Fei to the Imperial Garden, do not alert others. A hoarse voice came from the void. This was the voice of the Supreme Elder of the royal family. Yes, ancestor. The 3 royal elders responded respectfully. They might look very old, even though they were the elder of the royal family. However, compared to the Supreme Elder of the royal family who has lived for 500 years, they were merely juniors. Lin Fei, come with us. Since the Supreme Elder had spoken, the 3 royal elders no longer stopped in. They directly left the ascending dragon chamber with Lin Fei. Lin Fei followed behind the 3 elders, turning several corridors. Finally, it was wide open in front of him. This was an open area surrounded by lush trees. Although it was already winter, but here it was warm like spring. Even some flowers and trees didn't seem to be affected by the winter. Lin Fei looked up, looking at the void. In the void, there was a faint light, visible to the naked eye. Formation. Lin Fei understood. The entire Imperial Garden was covered by a formation. That's why it could be warm like spring here. In the Imperial Garden, there was a black-robed old man standing quietly. This old man, in fact, didn't look very old. He seemed to be about 50 years old. He even looked younger than the three elders. However, despite his youthful appearance, his eyes revealed a sense of age. Greetings to the ancestor. The three elders were very excited. They respectfully saluted the black-robed old man. The old man waved his hand, his gaze fell on Lin Fei. Immortal Slayer Saber, Lin Fei. Although your innate true chi is not perfect, and your saber intent is not perfect either, you are the most talented person I've seen in the last 500 years. Even the Sword Saint of the Hidden Sword sect from 300 years ago did not have your martial arts talent. The old man spoke in a hoarse, calm voice, his hands behind his back. True person. Lin Fei also respectfully saluted. Then he lifted his head, looking at the Supreme Elder of the royal family, and said in a deep voice, without becoming a martial sate, all is empty. The founder of the 9 profound sect was like this. What's the use of being more brilliant? In the end, isn't it just turning into a handful of dust? The Supreme Elder nodded. Indeed, you are very clear-headed. Without becoming a martial sate, all is empty. No matter how brilliant, it can't withstand the passage of time. Only by reaching foundation establishment can one extend one's life by hundreds of years. However, whether you can establish a foundation and become a martial sate, I can't help you. After all, I don't have any exotic beast flesh to give you, and I don't have the good fortune of the founding emperor who was able to obtain a 1,000-year-old blood orchid. Whether or not you can establish a foundation depends on you. Lin Fei nodded. He didn't expect the Supreme Elder of the royal family to give him exotic beast mate. That was impossible. Senior, this time I came to see you. I have only one request. I hope you can let me know how strong foundation establishment is. The eyes of the Supreme Elder were profound. He calmly looked at Lin Fei. How would you like to test? Whoosh! In the next moment, the aura on Lin Fei began to rise bit by bit. Even his saber intent gradually spread out. Above his head, a sharp great saber vaguely formed. A terrifying saber intent suddenly filled the entire Imperial Garden. Lin Fei's expression was very serious. The opponent he faced was the Supreme Elder of the royal family, a true person who had lived for 500 years. Furthermore, the Supreme Elder was definitely not an ordinary true person. He was very likely to be the top true person. Otherwise, how could he suppress the world for hundreds of years? The suppressed immortal sects could only hide in their mountain gates. They could only wait until the time limit of the Supreme Elder was approaching and then slowly move. Therefore, facing this unprecedented opponent, Lin Fei would concentrate all his attention and adjust the state of his body to reach its peak state. The 3 elders of the royal family, at this moment, after feeling Lin Fei's saber intent, couldn't help but retreat a few steps. It was just saber intent, but they couldn't even handle it. This also exposed their shortcomings. They were always in the royal family, living in comfort. Their minds and wills were too poor. Naturally, they couldn't block Lin Fei's transcendent saber intent. However, Lin Fei's opponent, the Supreme Elder of the royal family, seemed to be very casual. Even his spiritual power didn't fluctuate. As for Lin Fei's saber intent, it was as if he didn't feel it at all. He was still standing quietly in the same place. Lin Fei's momentum had reached its peak. At this point, he took a deep breath. Boom! A sky-high saber energy, up to 250 meters, condensed in the void. And this wasn't just saber energy. It was the heavenly saber condensed by Lin Fei. Under the heavenly saber, all sabers bowed. The might of the heavenly saber suddenly pressed down. The 3 elders, at this moment, felt like they were carrying a mountain on their backs. Under these circumstances, if they were to face Lin Fei, they couldn't even resist, let alone fight back. So this is the Immortal Slayer saber. So terrifying. It was only at this time that the three elders understood how terrifying Lin Fei was. High-level chi condensation cultivators. Top-level chi condensation cultivators. It was nothing more than a casual saber from Lin Fei. When the heavenly saber was condensed, the power of the heavenly saber covered the supreme elder of the royal family. Lin Fei's momentum finally reached its peak. He reached out his hand as if holding the heavenly saber in the void. His gaze was arrogant, with the momentum of cutting down all enemies with one saber. "I have a saber, please try it." As soon as Lin Fei's words fell, he used his hand as a saber, swinging it down. Boom. The 250 meters heavenly saber instantly cut through the void. It came down from the sky and slashed toward the Supreme Elder.